Good evening, punters, and welcome to another episode of The Tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a betting perspective. Really good week last week, as you would have heard in the recap pod. 5-2 on best bet, super selective round, but still 5 wins out of 7 bets against the line is very good. If we have any new listeners today, and maybe we do, because of our NBA same game multi that we posted that won 23 grand off 15 bucks. We've had a lot of messages about that, and like Jacob explained last time when we posted the NRL multi up that won $71,000. We do what we can, but we can't share those ones with everyone, because if everyone gets on it, they won't pay out the full amount, as is Sportsbet's terms and conditions. So a multi that we created for the inner circle, but we do what we can to help you guys, and hopefully with our knowledge and the stuff that we give out, you can create one of those yourself. Jacob, you're feeling a little bit under the weather this week, but hopefully ready to go.
I'm always ready to go, mate. Welcome. Thanks for listening or watching, guys, to Australia's #1 punting podcast. And I'm not just saying that. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong in calling us that, but I really can't think of another podcast out there that would have the combined views and listens that we get. Obviously, we are not famous people. We don't have a marketing budget, but we still have a lot of people tuning in every week. Our best bet results are through the roof, 63% winners. But we're not just giving you winners, we're telling you why. As you said, while we can't share something that's over 1,000 to 1, because not even the person who originally places the ticket gets paid one with the terms and conditions on their liability, unfortunately. We share as much insight as we can. And I can promise you this, we are obsessed with winning. I've woken up today basically sick as a dog, but in 6 years, I've never had a week where I just said, I'm just not feeling it for the pod. I'm just going to tip whoever. I'm just going to pick whoever. Every week I do my best, I know you do as well, to find as much value and to find as many winners as we can for the boys. This week's an interesting one. I didn't think we fully agreed on every game, but I think we've nutted out quite a few good plays for round 13.
Indeed we have, and all the best with your recovery, Jacob, but it's going to be tough with 8 games of footy coming on starting tomorrow night. With the Dragons hosting the Roosters, the Dragons are 10.5 point underdogs, the total sitting at 40.5 points. And personnel news first, Corey Norman dropped from this one and Adam Clune back in. And to be honest, I don't hate it. I've kind of always said that I disliked Corey Norman, and not only his, not necessarily his style of play, but sometimes the effort that he gives out there. And a few halves that have been dropped. Trent Robinson has come out and said that he's dropped Flanagan. He's not injured or anything. So Lachlan Lamb comes in to replace him. And look, to be honest, I didn't think Flanagan had been that terrible for the Roosters, but maybe sort of putting everyone on notice after a couple of lackluster performances. And look, I said in last week's pod, we've backed against the Roosters a few times now, and we kind of mentioned that, maybe they would just coast through the season this year, try and get a top 4 spot. But I don't necessarily think that the last 2 weeks is them just coasting. I think that the injuries have caught up with them a little bit, and now on top of that, they've lost a few forwards, weeks ago, but now on top of that, Jared Weir-Hargraves in serious doubt for this one, makes them even thinner on forwards. Now, in terms of the Dragons, they have to be up for this one. This is a must-win one. I know that they're giant underdogs here, but it's back-to-back really tough losses against the Sharks and the Rabbits. So there's a chance that they could come out deflated, but they shouldn't, playing, the back-to-back defending premiers. So, the line's probably getting just a touch high at that double digits, when a lot of people kind of think, Roosters will just, get back and be the team that they were, but they don't quite have the personnel that they used to.
They definitely don't. They haven't covered a game for 4 straight weeks. We've been against them the last 3 weeks, and we've won all those games, including the upset loss to the Raiders, and then last 2 weeks very underwhelming against the Titans and the Warriors. And the Dragons, you question their mental state a little bit, but let's not forget, this is kind of the rescheduled Anzac clash. And yeah, as you say, when you play a team at high profile as the Roosters, if you don't show up for it, you're going to get spanked. And the Dragons, while they've been mentally weak the last couple of games, you could also say, if things had gone a little differently, they could have got better results the last couple of games. Normie, I've tried to defend him. I'm a fan of his talent. You look at 2016, he could have arguably won the Dally M when he was on the Eels there. Even last year, picking him for Queensland in Game 3, I didn't mind the roll of the dice, because on his best day, he's such a talented player. But I have been frustrated that he looks like he drifts in and out of games and he looks disinterested. And I think he threw people off the scent because he because a ball fell in his lap and he scored the winning try against the Dogs. I don't think he actually played that well, but the narrative is he scored the match-winning try. So look, if the Dragons can be strong mentally, on paper they're not that far off the Roosters with all the guys who they've got out. And Warrior-Hargreaves is possibly the best prop in the game right now, has this calf injury. We're getting a generous number of points. So I think it's quite simple. We take St. George at home here.
Taking the dog, and just the one best bet for this one, we are making ourselves a Mechanical Dragons plus 12.5 points. It ends up being $1.80. Your main stake's going to be on the plus 11.5 with the $2 lines on either Ladbrokes and on Neds. And your small stake's going to be on the Roosters to win by exactly 12 points. That's $19 on Sportsbet. Let's move on to the early Friday game. We've got the Sea Eagles hosting the Warriors. The Sea Eagles are 11.5 point favourites, and the total is 36.5. You'll see a lot of lower totals this week. Obviously with the new rules and stuff, you've seen a lot of totals that are over 40, well over 40 sometimes. I think there's only one or two games this week that are 40 or over in terms of the total, and a lot of that has to do with the weather. In terms of Manly, you get Cade Cuss back, and I sort of mentioned last week that I thought they should have just kept him there at 5'8" anyway, so it's not too much of a reshuffle in terms of Dylan Walker over Cade Cuss. I think they're fairly scratchable and fairly similar. But in terms of New Zealand, Blake Green moves to the Knights, so you get Chanel Harris-Tavita in there, and I think he's a talented player. But for this one, Manly should win this one. They weren't horrible last week, I thought, and as you explained, Jacob, I thought Panthers were just awesome. New Zealand has a huge comeback win last week. You wonder about their mental state, if they're going to be up for it again, or if it's going to be a little bit of a letdown here as a double-digit dog. So, Manly probably wins this one, not land the points.
Yeah, look back to New Zealand's 2020 season. They hadn't played good in back-to-back weeks until last week, because I think their loss was no disgrace when they lost 18-10 to the Roosters. And then last week with the upset against the Tigers was the first time in 2020 they played good in 2 weeks. So now you're asking them to play back-to-back-to-back. I mean, who knows? And Todd Payton, this week the news is that he's rejected the permanent gig. I don't see how that could be a positive for the Warriors, that he doesn't want to stick with that club. I know that it's not that he doesn't want to. He's got his reasons, but still, no way that's a positive. What the Warriors have going for them, a really strong back row, although they will miss Blake Green. Harris-Tavita is a good replacement, but I feel like him and Nikorima are quite similar players. I don't know if they gel, if they're a perfect halves combo. Manly's got these monster middles. They've both got weakened back lines. You talk about the Warriors players that went home, and of course, Manly's still waiting on Tom Trbojevic, and the Scorpion is out for this one as well. I do think Manly should just be too good. They should rebound and they should win this game. But the line is too high for a Manly side that we can't be confident puts on a lot of points without many outside backs that scare you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Manly has struggled to put on a lot of points this season, especially with Turbo gone, Dylan Walker gone for a while now too. Let's move on to the Friday night game. It's the Rabbits hosting the Broncos. The Rabbits are 10.5 point favourites with a total sitting at 38.5 points. Reynolds named to play in this one after he went off in the first half last week. But for the Broncos, Milford is out for this one, so it'll be Croft and Dearden in the halves. And Fafita back, finally. We've been hearing for weeks that he might be back, but this is finally the week, supposedly. Anyway, he's been named. So I like the Rabbits in this one. I think that they're the far superior team. I think it's a better spot for them as well. You have them coming off a big comeback win over the Dragons, and I think it's a real confidence-boosting win that they needed that to get back into the 8 after really close back-to-back losses. I think the Rabbits are still underrated. They've had a number of injuries this year. Now they're getting healthier. In terms of the Broncos, I think it's a bad spot for them. I mean, they might get up for this one, but I think they put everything they possibly could into last week's game. Katoni Staggs took the Broncos on his shoulders, got them to an 8-point lead, and then they fall away at the end and lose by 10. Now you've got the Staggs video coming out. It's just yet another distraction for this Broncos team. I would play the Rabbits at the 10.5.
This game makes me think back to round 2, where we took the Rabbitohs as an underdog in Brisbane. It was a great bet. We had, I think, 4 best bets. We might have got out of the game going 1-3. Brisbane won that game, and it was actually thanks to Katoni Staggs. Pretty sure he had a hat-trick in that one. And that was one of those games where Brisbane were such frauds, but they went into the COVID break unbeaten, and people, had high hopes for 2020. But we could see even before that, back in round 2, that Brisbane wasn't, much chop. And here, Staggs back last week and was phenomenal. And you're right, they could have won that game. They could have held the ball in the final 10 minutes. The Bunnies are the better team, but I mean, they've lost Jaden Stewart to the
True.
judiciary and another player. Look, we don't know what we'll get out of Fafita. I'm not expecting him to come back and be in the form he was pre-COVID instantly, obviously with no match fitness. But Matt Lodge as well, similar boat. He's come back off that partial ACL tear, and he is one of the true leaders of this Brisbane team that always puts in and leads by example, and that's what they need. So I feel like there's that kind of double boost you get with both of those, that the confidence the other players get. I know they'll miss Milford, but Milford's a little bit like a Corey Norman in that he's a bit rocks and diamonds. I know you're going to get a very determined Brodie Croft coming back. Now, look, I think you're getting too many points with the Broncos. I know you disagree, so we've got a side bet on this one.
We do.
So I'm going to bet you, and I'm going to take the plus 10.5 on Brisbane, but I don't feel like super confident with it because I know Wayne would love to keep piling the pressure on Siebes. I know there's still bad blood, and as I said before, there's a bit of motivation and revenge factor for the Bunnies because they lost to Brisbane in round 2 and they probably shouldn't have. But in saying all that, double digits with just enough troops on deck for Brisbane, I will take them against you.
You should be confident because you've won like over 80% of the side bets that we've had since the restart. Let's move on to the early Saturday game. It is the Storm hosting the Bulldogs. The Storm are 14-point favourites and the total sitting at 39.5 points. Now, obviously, Cam Smith injured for this one. He's going to be out for at least another week or two. And they made the decision to rest Pappenhausen. A lot of people might be wondering why you'd just rest him, but I think it's quite an obvious reason. They've got the Roosters on deck next week on the Thursday game, so the shortest turnaround. So they want to have, their key players playing in that one. That's the far bigger game, and they figure they can beat the Bulldogs without Pappenhausen. But, Nico Hines is coming in, and he's going to want to prove something as well. And look, the Storm have had the most chillest month ever. They weren't really threatened last week against the Knights. It's been a month since they've even left Queensland. And I know that people were making a big deal out of them staying here, but they haven't really had to travel since they've had to do that. So they're well rested. I understand the big game is next week against the Roosters, but I think people are taking too much stock out of this where they've got people that can come in and cover Cam Smith and Pappy. So, with the 14 points, I understand the reasons to not want the Storm with the look-ahead spot, next week. But I can also see the Dogs folding in this one. You win against the Knights and you fuck up a close one last week with a stupid quick tap that I won't get into again. I don't know how much they are going to have left in the tank if they find themselves 12 points down at half time or something.
Yeah, like the Dogs, since Dean Pay quit, arguably could have won the last 3 weeks when you consider they're tied in the final minute against the Dragons. And they go down 18-16 last week to the Eels, and they did upset the Knights in Newcastle. So they've played really well, but a team of that level, they're gonna have a couple of flat spots for sure. As this Storm team is rolling, everyone's gonna say that the Panthers are the best team in the competition right now, but the Storm are quietly absolutely cruising. And you're right, like they haven't left Southeast Queensland for the last 4 games. They're in beautiful weather in the sunny coast, staying at a resort. They've got their families up there with them. I think they're enjoying being in camp, and of course, Pappenhausen, now he's a smaller body who takes a bit of punishment, so it makes sense to rest him. Nico Hines will be quite at home. He played for the Sunny Coast Falcons. And Smith is a big loss. If this was a finals game that they had to win, not having Cameron Smith there, who's arguably the GOAT, is a big loss. But in a game where you're a double-digit favourite, where the team will want to lift to help out Brandon Smith, everyone will do a little more. Brandon wants to audition to be a full-time 9, whether it's at this team or another side next year. Good sides rise to the challenge of making up for key players. You think about when the Roosters came up to Brisbane without Tedesco. It's certainly not an excuse. Everyone just pulls together. And I just think this Storm team should be way too good for the Dogs. Storm at home, I actually think it's a cheap line.
Indeed we do, and we've got a couple of best bets on the Storm. We are taking the Storm minus 13.5 points. You'll find that one at $2 on Ladbrokes and on Neds. We're going to take the Storm to win both halves. That's also $2 on Bet365. So a couple of even money bets there for you guys. Let's move on to the second game on the Saturday. It's the Knights hosting the Tigers. The Knights are laying 4 points and the total sitting at 37.5 points. Another game where there is rain expected for this one. It is always tough. I know that there's a short line, but you hate laying points in the rain. And look, this is the first game that Blake Green is coming back to partner Pearce in the halves. And, a lot of people making kind of a big deal out of it, saying that he's a great addition. I don't think Blake Green's been good for years. I get that he's an experienced guy, but I don't think it's going to click straight away. I thought that Pearson and Kurt Mann had something decent going there. You moved Kurt Mann to hooker, so it is kind of a bit of a reshuffle. Both teams with a few key injuries. Bradman Best for the Knights, he has been an absolute monster. I know that centers and wingers aren't worth that much, but like the way he fucking runs the ball is just like, it seems like it lifts the entire team. Now for the Tigers, obviously the big out is Harry Grant. You have Alex Twal out as well. And look, when Harry Grant's not on the field, this Tigers team does look different. But in saying that, in the rain, a little bit less playmaking and that kind of stuff, it just doesn't hurt as much. So in a rainy game with both teams that really, really need the win here, this is a massive game for both teams. You always lean under in games like this, and you don't feel dumb taking the dog.
It is a shame that the best two rookies of NRL 2020 are out in this one. Best for the Knights, and while center in the modern era that you can't really think of any necessarily superstars of the game, he's certainly a rising one. And this Knights team, if they have a weakness, it is their outside backs. Apart from Kalen Ponga himself, they don't have like those kind of match-winning outside backs to finish off a lot of tries. Bradman Best he's such a threat, so they will really miss him because it's a bit thin. I mean, even Edric Lee was having a good season. Tautau Moga's out as well, so it piles up the outside backs. And Green, I think, is a good pickup. I think you're going a bit harsh to say he hasn't been good for years. I thought he was good when the Warriors made that finals run, and he has been one of their best when the Warriors have pulled a few upsets this year. But Kurt Mann has done really well at 5'8". I don't think Green instantly slotting into the side this week will do a better job than Mann, and then Mann has to get shoehorned into hooker because of necessity that they just keep dropping like flies. So it's not ideal. I know Blake Green will just want to give Ponga plenty of early ball, but it's still, I mean, this Knights team, no one's talking about Daniel Saifidi, who played for New South Wales last year. They're really missing him. Maybe because his twin brother's still on the team. People still see the name Saifidi and they're not concerned, but they miss him for sure. Of course, the Tigers will miss Harry Grant, but it's like Benji Marshall can play some hooker. Mbai played hooker in the 2014 grand final, although he's far from a natural 9. And then you've got Billy Walters on the bench. Russell Packer back in the team too kind of cancels out the loss of 12. This was a very competitive game in round 2 that the Knights ran away with. I just think both teams are going to be absolutely desperate because they've both been kind of out of form. Particular Madge, I think he's down to his last spray that he can give the team. And if they don't respond to this one, I just don't know where he goes from there. So I think he'll really challenge the manhood of his side. And I don't know if the Tigers will win. I think it's going to be a really good game. But I think we're getting good line value. And I also, as I mentioned, because the teams are desperate, and you mentioned the poor weather, we're playing unders as well.
Indeed we are. We've got 3 best bets on this one for now. And for some reason, because we've got all of this text in there, it has made it a little bit small. So hopefully you guys can read that. We are going to take the Tigers plus 2.5 points in the first half. That's $1.82 on Bet365. We're also going to take under 38.5 points for the game. You'll find that one at $1.90 on Sportsbet. And then, oh my God, I've written this wrong. We are taking a mechanical, it's a Tigers plus 6. It ends up being $1.82. We're going to put our main stake on the Tigers plus 4.5. You'll find that at $1.91, bet easy. And our minus stake on the Knights to win by exactly 6 points. That's $21.
That actually works out at $1.88 if I recall.
So no, it can't possibly, because the Tigers plus 4.5 is $1.91. It's not the lads had the $2 lines were flat 4.
Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, plus 6, plus 6 is good value there.
Indeed it is. Let's move on to the night game. Should be an absolute cracker. You'd think that this is maybe game of the round. The Panthers up against the Raiders. The Panthers are laying 6 points, and the total sitting at a very low 34.5, and it is the lowest total of the round. And once again, weather related, but not only just that. Not only just the rain that's expected for this one, but also just a huge game for both teams. You know, Panthers are rolling and to keep top spot on the ladder, and this is their second tough game in a row now. And the Raiders looking to crack into the top 4. Now, personnel news, Charlie Staines is out, but as we said, you know, this Panthers side has a stock of really good outside backs. But Chance Nickel-Clockstead back earlier than expected. I thought he was meant to be out for like a month, but he's back for this one, and I think that's huge for them because the Raiders really missed him last week. I know they gutted out a close win, but you know, Rapana is certainly not a natural fullback, and I said, you know, numerous times that Chance Nickel-Clockstead has been one of the Raiders' best this year. For me, this is a Sharps versus Squares game. Everyone is so high on the Panthers. Anytime you turn on any sort of Fox footy show, they're all talking about how Cleary has gone to another level and this Panthers team is so good, and they're right. Cleary has gone to another level. He has been really good. But I think people are kind of, they're sleeping on the Raiders a little bit now. They got a close win over the Cowboys that a lot of regular punters will think, it was a bit of a lucky win, and maybe it was, but we called it. We were on the Cowboys hard last week, and we said it was a really tough spot for this Raiders side. So that's fair enough. I overlook that. And look, I look up and down these teams. I know the Panthers have been awesome, but you get Nickel Clockstad back. You've got Bateman back now. Yeah, you look at up and down, the Panthers roster is not that much better than this Raiders side, and in poor weather, I would take the Raiders catching the converted try.
And this is a game where I'm a bit more on the fence, and I know that maybe if you look at the Panthers side, the names don't jump off the page at you, but of course this team is playing the sum of all parts is really strong with this side, and I put it out there in my Winnie's weekly wrap that Nathan Cleary is the best player in the NRL right now. I don't know, did you agree with that statement, or am I getting caught up in the hype?
No, to be honest, over the last month he probably has been.
And if I have to define that, I'll put it this way: if you had to have like your life savings on a game, and you're on a team, and you've got to bet against the Panthers, and Cleary goes out first minute, or you've got to go against the Roosters and Teddy is out first minute, I think I want to go against the Panthers and they lose Cleary just because he's involved in every facet of the game. That's what I mean. Obviously goal kicking, but he's the primary kicker. He's the primary playmaker. He runs. Even in defense, he's changing the game. And that's not to take away from what other guys like Teddy are doing, and it's a close call, but that is how awesome Cleary's been, and the team is following. Stephen Crichton, I wouldn't say he's going under the radar, but geez, he's a superstar in the making as well. You talk about the outside backs they've got. Look, this Raiders team, I agree, they are under the radar now. Like, that forward pack is probably as good as any in the competition now that Bateman is back, and he looked pretty good last week for not having played a game of footy all year. Harawira and Nrl off the bench. They were flattered by the win last week. They shouldn't have won, but as you say, it was a bad spot. Look, they have to make this game a grind, and we took Manly against Penrith last week, and we paid the ultimate price in that one. We thought Manly could try and get Penrith in the trenches. That's what the Raiders need to do in this one. And look, we've seen them go to the SCG and beat the Roosters. We've seen the Raiders play the Storm to the wire, so they're capable. And if anything, like, they're stronger now because they've got that little bit more continuity at hooker, and they've got their key forwards back. I hate going against a team that is just on fire, which Penrith are. That's why I needed you to twist my arm. But getting above that key number of 6, we're going to do it. We're going to be on the Raiders.
We are indeed, and we don't need them to win the game. We just need them to keep it close in the round. We are taking the Raiders plus 6.5 points. You'll find that one at $1.87 on Unibet. And we're also going to take the Panthers to score under 3.5 tries. You'll find that one at $1.80 on Bet365. Let's move on to the Titans hosting the Cowboys. The Titans are 2.5-point underdogs with the total sitting at 43.5 points. And I don't necessarily know why the Titans are underdogs in this one. It is at the Gold Coast. I guess the news that Michael Morgan has been named to return has kind of, made everyone jump on this Cowboys side. But, now he's in some doubt as well as he kind of awaits the birth of his child. So they're saying that there's a decent chance that he's actually not going to play in this one, even though he's healthy enough to do so. And, if he doesn't play, Hampton is not any good at 5'8", that's for sure. And this Titans team is not that bad. They're not terrible. They've played 2 games in a row now where they've played 2 of the best teams in the comp, in the Panthers and the Roosters, really, really tough. And, some people will look at that and say it's still 2 losses. They'll look at the Cowboys, and they've been decent in the last 2 games as well. But I'll tell you, both those games have been in Townsville. Cowboys do have a huge advantage in Townsville. They're not as good away, and this is their first game away in 3 weeks. So, and I think that last week was probably a little bit of a deflating loss for them as well. They like you said, Jacob, they should have won that one. They lose a close one against the Raiders. And look, I think we've got pretty even teams here with the Titans at home catching points.
I agree. Last week, both sides disappointing losses, but the Titans will look at it like, we could have beaten the Roosters, but they were down 18-6 and scored late to make it 18-12. And I think you get confidence from the fact that you played the Roosters that tight. Whereas the Cows will say, we should have beaten the Raiders, and they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't. And Morgan probably would have been the difference last week.
Yeah.
And he will, of course, add this team and adds leadership and experience. There's that chance, as you say, with expecting a child that he has to be a scratch. But look at what the spine is going to be for the Cowboys on Sunday. You got the Hammer. He's, brand new there. Hampton's a natural 6, and we've barely seen him play 6 since he's gone to North Queensland. So I'm not going to say he's not a good 5'8", but Reece Robson is new to the full-time hooking role since in the time that Morgan's been off with the shoulder surgery. So these guys haven't all played together. And the forward pack is better with McLean. He got back last week from a calf injury. Maguire's back from suspension. They both help Tamalolo. But they do lose Asiata, and the Titans have a pretty strong forward pack too, pretty much full strength. They're at home. I'm with you. I'm surprised they're an underdog. AJ Brimson joined the team last week and looked good. This is my favourite side of the week, I probably have to say, grabbing the points with the Titans.
And we've got 2 best bets on the Titans for now. We are making ourselves a mechanical Titans plus 4 points for the game. That's $1.88. We're putting our main stake on the Titans plus 3.5 with the $2 lines on Ladbrokes and on Neds. That's a good bet in and of itself. But if you want to make the plus 4, you're going to put 6% of your stake on the Cowboys to win by exactly... Oh, fuck that up again. Cowboys to win by exactly 4 at $17 on Bet365. Then we're going to have the Titans to win winning at halftime or full time. That is $1.80 on BetEasy.
And that mechanical Titans plus 4 is the one I was thinking of. That's $1.88, right?
You're right. You're absolutely
effectively
right.
Getting that extra insurance of the exact 4. But as we've said before, when people ask about the mechanicals, it's up to you. Like, it's not necessarily more value to bet it as a mechanical, but it's safer. You don't have to. If you just want to play the main stake, you're going to get better odds, but you're going to win slightly less often, or you're going to at least have a couple extra losses in there. But, in the long run, it's pretty marginal. Either way is good value if we like that side.
Yeah, absolutely. We should add, you can play the main stake by itself, the 90% or the 95% by itself, and it's still good value. It's probably not the best idea to just play the minor stake on the exact winning margin, that's for sure. Let's move on to the last game of the round. It is the Sharkies hosting the Eels. The Sharks are plus 6 points, and the total is 39.5. And we should say it's not a true Sharks home game. Obviously, they're not playing any games at PointsBet Stadium. They're playing at Jubilee for this one, so not a true Sharks home game in this one, but... Will we finally see Dugan play his 200th game? Who fucking knows? But he's meant to play in this one, along with Jesse Ramian. So that's an upgrade at both centres, replacing Talakai and Ferris from last week. So that should add even more punch to a Sharks attacking side that has been very good this year. Ryan Madison's still a week away for the Eels, and arguably he's been one of their best this year. Now, tough game to handicap, because the Eels have been absolutely awesome this year. And, I think that it's still probably catching too many points with this Shark side, who have been very good. And the issue is, I guess, with taking the points with the Shark side against the Eels, is Sharks are kind of a high variance team, and you could see a scenario where the Eels blow them out. But I really do think the Sharks have a legitimate chance to win this one. They're a confidence team, and what better confidence to get than, sitting 6th on the ladder now after 2 very close back-to-back wins that they arguably shouldn't have won either of those ones. Now the Eels, close win last week, arguably could have lost that one if the Dogs went a little bit differently. But I think they took their foot off the gas in the second half a little bit. And a lot of people will say, well, that's all that happened with this Eels side. But I'd argue that their last month of footy hasn't been super impressive. I still understand that they're easily a top 4 side, but I don't think they should be giving the Sharks a converted try in this one.
And one of the reasons the Eels haven't been great in the last month is because Madison's been out. He's either been out of the side, or like when they played the Tigers, he got concussed very early and didn't play. So they're not completely full strength. But in saying that, I still think they're a decent level above the Sharks. I still believe the Eels, even though they've been patchy, are a true contender in 2020. And the Sharkies, I feel like they might just be a little bit of a flat track bully. They beat the teams that are below them. They beat the teams where they know they can just outscore them. And the Sharks have been great in attack. They can put 30 on anyone. And this week, you get back Dugan, Moylan, Ramian, all off hammies, and they're all good attacking players. So that should add to their attack. Although I guess it's a significant kind of chemistry mix-up. You're changing your lineup a fair bit, and you're moving Johnson, who's been amazing, moving him from 5'8" to halfback. But in saying that, the Sharks pose a threat for sure, and they're dangerous with the footy. But the Eels have been the best defense in 2020. And what I like about the Eels this week is just that they're off those poor performances and they're going to treat that Dogs game, where, as you say, they're kind of let off the gas, as a loss. I think this would be a good spot for a near max effort for Parramatta. And that's why I would actually lay the points with Para. I'm not crazy about the -6.5. But since you like the Sharks and I just couldn't get there with you on best bets, I am going to be laying -6.5 against you on a side bet.
And that's 2 side bets for the pod this week. So see if I can claw my way back. But that'll do it for round 13 preview, guys. Thanks once again for tuning in. And honestly, it has been a ridiculously good season for best bets this year. And look, I kind of, maybe I say it too much on the pod, but definitely if you're a new listener, don't expect to just easily win every single week. You know, punting is a long-term thing, so make sure you're following your bankroll management, because we're not going to go 5-2 every week. There will be losing weeks in there, but if you stick with us long-term, you certainly will profit. Anything you wanted to add before we get out of here, Jacob?
You've said it all there, mate. We've only lost money in 1 round out of 13 this year, but of course nothing is certain. It's called punting, not winning. But we do our very best, and I like the plays we've got for round 13.
Indeed we do. Thanks once again for tuning in, guys. We'll see you on Sunday night for the recap pod.
Lego.